So some background for this. I believe admins spend a lot of time creating automation such as standalone PowerShell scripts, Orchestrator runbooks, Azure Automation runbooks, SMA runbooks, etc. And ultimately what we want is we want to create those pieces of automation, and they're always going to be broken pieces of automation. You want to put them in some kind of engine to manage those automation components, and you want to be able to delegate that down to other levels of IT or consumers of that IT, things like service desk or your HR IT professionals, right? The people that are responsible for maintaining certain components of accounting, maybe engineering, support, and potentially end users, right? It has some really good tools out there that enable management of this automation, right? They have tools like Azure Automation. If you were to run a runbook in this fashion and provide parameters of input, as you can see in the right-hand side, it's a free text box, right? If it's a yes or no or true or false, it's a slider, it's a switch. But any other kind of context to wrap around the input or to normalize the input really does not exist because it's PowerShell. Orchestrator, it's a Silverlight-based interface, and if I needed to provide something as simple as an email address into an input, there's no way to really normalize that input for that automation. So what that leaves you is your automation is prone to failure because you are not standardizing the inputs into the automation engine. So let's introduce the model portal, right? Really, the premise of it is we want to leverage our automation and we want to delegate it out. Responsive portal connects to multiple data sources including Azure Automation, SQL, Active Directory, SMA, and Orchestrator. You can create groupings of runbooks and publish those groups based on Active Directory groups. You have multiple roles, whether you're an admin, a publisher, or a consumer of the portal. Look at her, shall we? All right, so this is the first group, and one of the things that you'll notice is that I have a roll-up down here, so I'm an admin because I can see all of these items. If I was a user, I would not be able to see the connections or security components of it, or sorry, if I were a publisher, those two items would go away. If I were just a user, I would see actions and dashboard. When I add a user to a group, it's going to require two inputs, a user and a group. It's going to bind to the user, bind to the group, add the user to the group, and email the person. Okay. If I wanted to go through this in Orchestrator, I'd have to connect to the Orchestrator web service, or the web console rather, go in and I'd get an input for a user and a group, right? And just while that's opening up, let's take a look at my input data. It is the SAM account name and the group CN. There we go. All right, so maybe I need to add it to domain. I'm going to add it to DNS admins for the purpose of this, right? So I'm going to add myself into DNS admins, my standard user account. Oh, nope, it started.
There it goes, yeah, look at that.
So see it flipped over to green to start. So now what we say, it's time to end, right? You'd probably want to automate that in some fashion, but let's remove a user from a group. And we'll go to DNS admins and we'll pick Jason Rutherford. And we'll click start. And so it should go from pending to running and to completed. Now the job output is whatever you put in the actual run book to return back, right? And so if I wanted to see who's in a group, add a user to a group, remove stale accounts from ID, those are all Orchestrator pieces. If we want to start talking about APS, right? So this is the part that's going to be kind of fun. Start patching by owner. Shall we? So this is coming from Azure Automation. So here's the owners that I have in my APS, and just to confirm that that is in fact the case, I believe that all that information lives on CM01, doesn't it? So what happens here in the APS is we have the ability to start patching by owner. And so if we go take a look at our automation accounts,
what does APS stand for?
Automated Patching Solution. That looks right. All right, so if we go into runbooks, yeah, they're there. So we have a lot of these APS things. So one of them is to start patching by owner. Okay. So if I wanted to start patching by owner, I could come in here and hit start. Mind you, this would be somebody that's delegated down to. Has to make a decision. Do they want to patch on a hybrid remote worker? They want to patch on their AWS side or their demo env on-prem? They don't know. Then what's the owner email? I'm not sure what's in there. I don't know if it's a group, I don't know if it's a DL, I don't know if it's me, I don't know if it's you. I'm not sure what to type. Right? I am going to start patching, and I'm going to patch Jason Rutherford. This to initializing.
The more you use it, the better you use it.
That's right. New. So we shall see here.
Go to the run book and go to jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Or just job statistics.
Mm-hmm. Because we chose Jason Rutherford, right? And the input was actually my email address. Interesting. We'll say is the same thing you're seeing in the output, right? Starting patching process. Starting patching process. I have grouped two components here. I've got an Active Directory set of tasks, and I've got a server patching set of tasks. Before we really dive in and take a look at what's happening, let's look at some of the connections that we have. Here we have a couple of connections, and as you can see, we have multiple connections. We have Azure connections, SMA, Orchestrator, Active Directory, and SQL. All right, so what can you do when you have a connection? Well, you can do things in the global configuration area where I can start normalizing inputs. So as an example of an Active Directory input, I have an Active Directory input with names that start with J. As I add more names that start with J in this case, it's just an LDAP search query string that allows me to connect into whichever AD I've connected to, in this case the demo env AD that we just looked at in the connections. I have a parameter source and a display source. So a parameter source is what's being passed into the automation. Okay, that's the meat that's going into the runbook. But maybe you want to show the display name and have them select the SAM account name, right? So it's doable here. Here's another example of using the SAM account name as a parameter source, the display name is the common name, and then the where clause is you have to be a person that has a SAM account name that is not disabled. You can also create static dropdowns. So you provide the values. So like in a hosting environment, if you wanted to delegate some administration levels to certain domains, maybe not others, you could create those manually if you wanted. You could also create multi-select, select boxes, true or false. All those different kinds of controls are present. Let's take a look at some more of the global config, and then we'll actually go run something. So a sprocket is, if we take a look at the dashboard, it's the groupings, Active Directory or server patching, right? So if you take a look at the sprocket, you can see that you have the available actions that are published, and we can literally just move those over, right? Let's add a new action. So we add a new action. I select my connection source, whether it's the ARM automation, the demo env, where all the APS lives, SMA or Orchestrator. Let's just take a look at the ARM automation account. So this is actually going to reach into our Azure subscription and take a peek, and you can see that this is the actual subscription for the other demo env, but because the tenant and client ID and they all don't match, I have to go to the actual demo env automation, which is what I chose. And these are all the run books that live there. So I could say all sorts of things. I'm going to pick one that says test clean Active Directory, and what will happen at the bottom here, drag it down, I get some options. All right. So there's three parameters: domain, email address, and days dig room. The run-on parameter you can set when you publish it to run in Azure or to run, in this case, on our hybrid runbook worker group. Now let's say those are the two options in that automation account. You can make these parameters hidden and provide a custom control, which wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, unless you did a straight text field, made them hidden, and then hardwired it to what it needed to be for some reason. But we're going to show the actual UI. Give it a title. Please select a domain. And then I have a domain list in here for that specific question. Email address. Please provide an email address. Maybe in this case, it's just going to email you, so it could be a, instead of a selection box, it's a text box if you don't provide anything. And then please select a number of days to groom. And I think I have a selection in here, days to groom. Those are just some permissions for somebody to view it. All the groups that I have permission to start with AP, I believe. So we'll do this AP portal actions all, give it a group, give it a name, groom, and there you have it. I can go to the actions list, connect to it here, and you'll see that please provide an email address. So this is a free text box. I can do whatever I want with, right? I can select the domain because I gave it the drop down for the domain. I can select the days in which I want it to groom, and then I didn't configure the run on, so I have to configure it at the time of execution. So I left it blank so I can run it either in Azure on my hybrid runbook group if I wanted to.